Wonderful. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here at our latest MUPU-DIG call. Just a reminder, we are recording. This will be available on our YouTube channel, along with recordings of all our other webinars. Be looking out in the chat for instructions to join our mailing list if this is your first time here. We're an informal, friendly group, and we hope you will come back. If you sign up on our mailing list, we'll be sure to alert you when our next call is going to be in a couple of months. Also, if you haven't already, please take a second to mute your audio. Take a second, as Greg said, to introduce yourself in the chat. And with that, I'm delighted to introduce our guests for today. We have a lot of exciting ground to cover. With us is Allison Levy, the Digital Scholarship Editor at Brown University. She is joined by Victoria Hindley, Acquisitions Editor for Visual Culture and Design at the MIT Press. Allison and Victoria are going to be talking about a number of really exciting initiatives that they have worked on both individually and together. We're going to be hearing about the presentation on the Multimodal Digital Monographs Content Collaboration Community report on the findings of a 2021 summit co-hosted by Brown and Emory on enhanced and interactive digital publications. We're going to be then focusing on an individual case study of a project from the initiative's work, A New Vision for Islamic Pasts and Futures by Shahzad Bashir. And we're going to hear from then a moderated conversation between Allison and Victoria about how they work together on this exciting project, plus new initiatives that they have ahead of them. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison to get us started off. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Emily, and thanks to the whole MUPU-DIG team. It's really an honor to be here and to be able to speak with this community. As Emily did describe, there are various segments, quite a bit of work that we're going to introduce you all to today. And so excuse me in advance for the different segments, a couple of different PowerPoints and a demo of a project. So please just bear with me as I maneuver through my props today. I'm going to begin with an overview. Let's see. Bear with me here. Just have to shrink all of the windows. Okay, there we go. I want to introduce Brown's Digital Publications Initiative and tell you a little bit about the work that we do. We started in 2014, 2015 with our first grant from the Mellon Foundation, and this was for the grant program for rethinking scholarly monographs. In 2019, we received a renewal grant for Mellon that allowed us to continue our work through 2025. We published our first born digital publication in 2020. That's Furnace and Fugue by Tara Numedal, a professor of history here at Brown. And we currently have 13 projects in the portfolio, 3 now published, and the others in various stages of development. And then we partnered with the MIT Press, not only on an author's publication, but on a new book series that I'll also be talking about that happened just this past year. And we also just wrapped up a national training program sponsored by the NEH for scholars from less resourced institutions who wish to pursue digital publications. So this is just a timeline of sort of where we started, where we are now, and a glimpse into where we're going. This is a view of the portfolio, if you will. So the first three works are published now. Furnace and Fugue was published by University of Virginia. Shadow Plays came out earlier this summer with Stanford University Press, and A New Vision for Islamic Pasts and Futures, about which you'll see and learn much more today, was published just about 10 days ago by the MIT Press. The others are, as I say, in stages of development. So we work with our humanities faculty here at Brown. There is a call for expressions of interest. There is a faculty advisory board. We review proposals every fall. We typically take in 2 projects per year, and these are across a range of disciplines: American studies, archaeology, ethnic studies, Africana studies, history of art, etc. We work with faculty at all career levels. Early career scholars who may be pursuing their first monograph as a digital publication, which is very exciting, and also more senior scholars who are sort of taking a digital turn for maybe a second or third book project. All of the work is it's created as a digital publication, so it's born digital. To date, they have been exclusively digital, so there's no print component. They are highly interactive with other enhancements as well, so it's a very dynamic experience. No 2 projects are alike. We don't take a cookie cutter approach. It's a very bespoke approach to this portfolio. And we partner with different university presses. We rely on the press to handle the peer review, which is critical for this work, copy editing, marketing, etc. So all of the expertise of the press we bring into the workflow and the intended outcome for these digital publications. We also do some what we call in-house publications. These are not intended to be handed off to a university press, and you see 3 representatives at the bottom of my slide. Brown's own Slavery and Justice report, which we brought out this past November to mark the 15th anniversary, but it's an enhanced, expanded edition. We also have a Race and in America series that we've produced in collaboration with the Center for the Study of Race and Ethnicity in America, and then a Nicholas Brown project that relies very heavily on our special collections material. We use a variety of platforms. We've used Scalar, WordPress, Manifold, and custom-built sites that are done here at Brown. And we are starting to explore PubPub as well. So we're always looking for, really engaging, compelling, interesting content that really requires development and presentation in a digital space, so that we can present research and present argumentation in ways that could just never be accomplished in a print format. I want to give a very special shout out to my team, because I know they're on this call: Crystal Bruce, who is our designer for digital publications, and Holiday Shapiro, who is a digital content specialist. We are a small team, but we work together to produce this work, which is so important and impactful across the humanities. So I just want to say special thanks to Crystal and Holiday. They are very much part of everything I'm showing you. I'm just the spokesperson today. I just want to celebrate something that just happened this summer. We had an NEH grant to develop an institute on advanced topics in the digital humanities. And our focus was on born digital scholarly publishing, resources, and roadmaps. And the idea was to support those authors who may not have the infrastructure at their own institutions. And so we had a cohort of 15 scholars. 60% teach at HBCUs, and we had a very immersive 3-week experience together, which was amazing. 2 weeks on Zoom with faculty presentations, and then 1 week in person together on the Brown campus, talking through, presenting concrete roadmaps for these 15 scholars to advance their work. So the idea here was to present sort of low to mid-touch approaches to digital publication development. There was a lot of networking with press directors and acquisitions editors, so that they were, the cohort was able to connect, to share their projects in progress with interested editors. So again, just to help move these projects forward. So I just want to show off a few shots from a couple of weeks ago. Again, it was a deeply enriching experience for all of us. Certainly, we learned so much from these scholars, and there was just a very, very strong sense of community and collaboration. And I think that really does characterize this landscape, this digital scholarly publishing landscape, the people involved in it. It is very much a sense of strong community, a generous community, and I just love learning from each other. I think that's a really important part of what we do as we're innovating and finding new ways to experiment with different scholarly forms. Okay, so now what I'd like to do, let's see, bear with me. I'm going to stop the share. And I'm going to move over to a different PowerPoint. And so now that I've given you all an overview of what we've been doing here at Brown, and I spoke about this very strong community, I want to now talk about this white paper, which I co-authored with Sarah McKee at Emory University. She is digital scholarship editor at Emory, and we got together and had a summit about a year and a half ago now, and I'm going to actually read a text just to be most efficient and get in as much information as I can. But Brown and Emory co-hosted a summit about a year and a half ago, and so this is the white paper that resulted from that event. So here we go. So bear with me. I am going to read a little bit of text here for about almost 10 minutes. So the white paper is an exploration of the current and future landscape of digital scholarly publishing. The white paper reports the findings of a spring 2021 summit co-hosted by Brown and Emory on multimodal digital monographs. With its focus on scholarly content, the summit convened scholars, academic staff experts, and representatives from university presses. Case studies of 8 recently published or in development works provided the basis for in-depth, evidence-based discussions about the most pressing concerns and challenges facing stakeholders in digital scholarly publishing today. In particular, participants considered questions of cross-institutional collaboration, community engagement, professional development, open access, peer review, metadata and discoverability, preservation, and sustainability. Although the summit focused on a selection of projects supported by the Mellon Foundation's Digital Monographs initiative, The presentations and generative discussions that followed raised important concerns and opportunities that extend well beyond the initial aims of the featured projects. A key objective of this white paper is to promote greater inclusion and equitable access of diverse voices as the development, validation, and dissemination of multimodal digital monographs continues to unfold. Thus, the report serves as a starting point to acknowledge the work that is already underway, to learn what we can from it, and to seek viable, sustainable means of furthering our shared mission to increase the visibility and reach of humanities scholarship to audiences both within and beyond the academy. So this is available in PubPub, and I'll share the URL with you all. But just to say a little bit about the report structure, we discussed the purpose. Then there's a lengthier section on presentations where we summarize those team presentations of the case studies, and then expanding pathways where we look to the future and we try to tackle some of these most challenging questions, and we give examples again of work that is underway. So let me say a little bit then about the purpose. The rapidly evolving landscape of digital scholarly publication challenges efforts to take stock of the wide range of innovative practices and system-changing interventions that characterize a growing body of publications that offer unique capabilities beyond conventional formats, from multimedia enhancements and interactive navigation to community engagement and global reach. This paper features 8 case studies that offer promising ways forward as the process of establishing best practices for the development, validation, and dissemination of multimodal digital monographs continues to unfold. Even at this early and experimental stage, we find among the myriad approaches that collaboration grounded within a community of scholars, publishers, and technology experts committed to expanding humanities scholarship in meaningful and innovative ways, that this kind of collaboration undergirds all of these successful efforts. Efforts to reimagine the monograph for the 21st century started in 2014 with the launch of the Mellon Foundation's Digital Monograph Initiative. Inclusive of a small handful of planning grants that led up to the official 2014 launch, the foundation awarded $32.78 million in grants to 44 organizations, some receiving multiple grants, between 2011 and 2020. While a large part of Mellon's investment went to building out the digital infrastructure available to university presses, the foundation also sought to support the community of scholars seeking to legitimate the expanded possibilities that digital publication offered for developing and presenting their research. To this end, a smaller number of grants was awarded to institutions experimenting with university-based models of support for faculty, ranging from developmental editing and design support to assistance in placing the work with suitable publishers, and Brown and Emory would both fall into that category. In February 2018, the Mellon Foundation hosted an all projects meeting for many of the institutional support grantees. Representatives of these projects gathered in New York to share progress and challenges with one another during what were still germinal days. During this period, the foundation also convened project teams from the University Press cohort to promote collaboration between platform and tool developers. 3 years later, with the encouragement of Mellon's Public Knowledge Program, 2 of the grantees, Brown and Emory, sought to foster a more comprehensive conversation, including for the first time, the scholar's perspective. The intention from the start was to call attention to the faculty-led experimentation that was taking place across a number of libraries and humanities centers, some of which already involved university presses. Shifting the focus away from tools and technology, as important as those discussions remain, to the larger scholarly communications ecosystem, the summit emphasized author and audience needs and opportunities. And so I just will quickly talk through the 8 case studies. They were divided according to the publishing workflow loosely. So we started with author considerations, and the Bashir project was featured there. We'll hear much more about it in a few minutes. And it was paired with Jim Crow in the Asylum, a project by Kylie Smith, who's a faculty member at Emory, and this is forthcoming from UNC Press. Acquisitions considerations, we looked at Feral Atlas, a Stanford 2020 publication, and Soul Liberty, which is another UNC project by Nicole Myers-Turner. We then moved on to production considerations, Sounding Spirit, an Emory project, also in partnership with UNC Press and forthcoming. And that was paired with the Lab book, which is a project out of Minnesota using the Manifold platform, a work in progress, multi-authored work. And then we looked at post-production considerations, and there we featured two projects already published, making their way out into the world with user stats and all that other great data. So we looked at Furnace and Fugue, which is Brown's first publication out with Virginia in 2020, and As I Remember It, which was published the year before by the University of British Columbia Press, Raven Space, and so we had, as you can see, teams of authors, designers, marketing experts, acquisitions editors, et cetera. And so bringing all of these voices together to talk about the process and the teamwork and the collaboration was very useful, and certainly having the scholar's voice there, understanding why they chose to go digital and what their expectations were, what their objectives were in doing so. And then the report ends with a section called Expanding Pathways. The 8 multimodal digital projects showcased and examined during the summit provide a lens through which to consider some of the most pressing questions around reimagined forms of humanities scholarship. What models for publishing enhanced and interactive scholarly projects might be working? What might be emerging, what is working well? What are the common challenges that remain, and how do we address them? How can we encourage a shared vocabulary for these digital publications among the wider scholarly communications community? While each of the projects, representing a broad disciplinary range and span of subject matter, offers a different perspective and often vocabulary, when taken together, they reveal lessons learned and clarify key priorities. From A New Vision for Islamic Pasts and Futures and Feral Atlas, for example, we understand that interactivity and a thoughtful interplay among text and multimedia offers authors new and powerful ways to articulate complex arguments. As I Remember It and Jim Crow in the Asylum provide distinct opportunities to examine the ethical implications of humanities research and to consider the new ways in which digital publication engages with audiences beyond the academy. Sounding Spirit and Furnace and Fugue foreground the powerful outcomes of collaborations with university presses and universities, modeling how such partnerships leverage resources and expertise to strengthen the humanities infrastructure and allow for innovation within it. Soul Liberty and the Lab book overtly connect digital publishing with digital humanities methodologies and offer insight into the workings of iterative and/or collaborative publishing workflows, emphasizing the need for strong communication and collegiality among project partners. While significant work remains in the effort to develop multimodal digital scholarship in thoughtful, generous, inclusive, and equitable ways, we are heartened to see and to share the ways in which it has already begun. The projects showcased in this white paper offer a plethora of examples, working in multiple registers and across different communities. But in addition to encouraging conversations about the development of individual multimodal digital projects, we also want to acknowledge other ways in which the humanities infrastructure is growing to support the expansion of opportunities for authors and for readers beyond the academy. And so this is just a sample of initiatives that are discussed in greater length in the white paper. Again, just pointing to efforts to increase diversity and access in the practice and the production of digital publications. So I'm going to stop the share. That is my second segment. I think at this point, I'm going to sort of transition to my conversation with Victoria Hindley. But by way of transition, I'm going to first demo very briefly Shahzad Bashir's project, which was one of those case studies presented in the white paper, and it's going to be the focus for the remainder of the conversation. So just a moment. Okay, so let me see. Okay, and another screen share, my last one. Okay. Let me take you into this project. Again, it was published just about 10 days ago, and we will share the URL with you all so that you can explore in much greater depth. But I just want to highlight some of the very special features of this project. So this is the landing page, and one enters into the publication, and we encounter this sort of visual table of contents, or a networked table of contents. The icons represent different portals, so that readers can choose their point of entry and their pathway beyond. And you see down here at the bottom, I can also use this tool to see the different chapter sections, showing off chapter 3, for example. I can also click on that, which will lock it in place, and then I can explore neighboring sections, which are intentionally placed. This is material that is linked thematically or visually or methodologically, and so this interface doesn't change, it doesn't shift. It is very dynamic in the sense that it invites readers to explore and to enter into this text, but it isn't an ever-shifting interface. Now, what I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to unlock that. I want to go into this one section. Before I do that, let me show you this. Readers who prefer a more conventional table of contents with guidance from the author on a sequential read, if they choose that linear approach, of course, at any time they can access this table of contents. And of course, they can also jump around and enter different sections from this screen as well. But I prefer this constellation. And so now let me bring you into one of the sections, the Grave of Time. So here I just want to show off really the very tight strategic integration of form and content. and the way that illustrations are presented in very innovative ways. So many times you will encounter a stack of images, and then clicking on them opens it up, and you can, we want to break down a lot of those sort of hierarchical ways of looking, and move away from comparison type presentations, and not wanting to sort of privilege one image over the other. Readers can rotate these. The placement over the text is intentional. Again, not wanting to privilege the written word, but using visual material to tell a different story, or a complementary story. And of course, these can be enlarged, and there's a zoom feature. There's also an image gallery at the in another section of the publication, which allows readers to move through all of the images. Again, variations here on how those are presented. At the end of each section, we get a sort of a detail of that constellation, which is quite dynamic here, as you see, and it just allows you to avoid having to go back to the very beginning. But from the end of each section, again, the author is offering recommendations for where readers might want to go next. And of course, these are all sections of different chapters, but I could stay in this chapter, of course, and move around to the different sections through this navigation. But I think I'll go to life stories, which takes me from chapter 5 to chapter 1. And again, we see a variety of image formats here. There's also video inserted into this book as well. Let's see. Back to all chapters if I choose to, and I think one last place I'll take you is into A Lost Found Nation. And I might just pause here for a moment to look at this image, a photograph by Gordon Parks that was published in Life magazine. And there's a complex layering here that echoes the argument that the author is making about Islam and temporality. And then, yes, one last section, staying in this chapter, but going to Reading the Stars. There are pull quotes that appear throughout, just to highlight the very compelling writing in this book. There's also the overview appears so that one doesn't have to return to the introduction, but can get the this chapter's argument within the chapter itself. And then, of course, resources, works cited, and additional further reading is available as well. So I'm going to, let's see, just return here, I think, as an invitation for you all to enter into this book on your own and explore it in much more detail. So let me stop the share. Okay, and I'm going to now open it up. I'm going to introduce Victoria Hindley, again, acquisitions editor at MIT Press for design and visual culture. And she worked with the author Shahzad Bashir to develop this project. And we're going to talk about that process. But first, I think Victoria will tell us a little bit more about the MIT Press to get us going.
Sure, thank you. I'm really pleased to be here with you, and it's always incredible, Allison, to learn more about your work and just to listen to your perspective on our collaboration, which reminds me what a delight it has been to work together over these past years. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to contribute to this conversation. Right, I think we'll talk about the collaboration, but I might just spend a couple of moments to share a little bit with you about the MIT Press and how we came to this partnership. As some of you may know, the MIT Press recently celebrated its 60th anniversary, having been established in 1962. We currently publish or distribute about 400 books a year across the arts, sciences, and technology, working with a team of 15 commissioning editors and an accomplished staff based both here in the US and Europe. We produce work with a commitment to intellectual rigor, bold design, and quality production. Our mission is to mobilize knowledge to empower and inform, and our books and journals aim to honor complexity and nuance by centering challenging, provocative, and transformative arguments derived from exceptional research. We aim to reach beyond the Western canon, traditional academic disciplines, and geographic boundaries, to prioritize instead wide-ranging perspectives, interdisciplinary perspectives, as well as to focus on underrepresented and underrepresented authors and understudied narratives through initiatives such as the Fund for Diverse Voices and its grant program. The press has also been a leader in open access for a couple of decades. Recent initiatives include MIT Press Direct to Open, a collaborative library-supported model that provides open access to our monographs, and the Knowledge Futures Group, founded in 2018 as a partnership between MIT Press and the MIT Media Lab, which builds sustainable tools such as PubPub to support an open knowledge common. My list within this ecosystem at the MIT Press focuses on visual culture and design, as Allison mentioned. And I take the position that visual and material culture have always been central to meaning making, and critically, they have never been neutral. It's this lack of neutrality that has motivated a very long-running personal and professional commitment to examine how visual and material culture are inscribed with power, and what's at stake in that power, who has access to it, who doesn't, and why that is, and in my view, how those answers affect all of us. Recent and forthcoming titles include Tina Camp's A Black Gaze and Nicholas Mirzoff's White Sight, The Visual Politics and Practices of Whiteness, and of course, Shahzad Bashir's wonderful A New Vision for Islamic Pasts and Futures. I should also mention, given the audience here, that I and my colleagues co-publish titles with museums globally, including the Reina Sofia in Madrid, the Center for Art and Media in Karlsruhe, the Architecture Museum in Vienna, the House of World Cultures in Berlin, and the Cooper Hewitt and Museum of Modern Art in New York. In short, we partner with authors and institutions to realize the full impact of research and knowledge for the widest possible global audience, in partnership with our distribution arm, Penguin Random House, and through a variety of platforms. So given these commitments, we've been thrilled to find a mission-aligned partner in Brown University through Allison and her amazing team. And it was immediately clear that we shared not only a commitment to quality, but also to advancing diversity and knowledge through innovative means. I would add that delightfully, we've also found that we have a joint commitment to the spirit of experimentation, which has made our work a pure joy as we have put heads together to push out the boundaries of what digital publishing can be and do. And I couldn't ask for a better collaborator. So back to you, Allison.
Well, thank you, Victoria. It has been very exciting for us to work with MIT. Brown are not a university press. We had a university press. We no longer do. Maybe 30 years ago or so that came to a close. We don't want to become a press. We want to focus on content development and supporting our authors, and really rely on the expertise of the university presses. And certainly the spirit of experimentation and innovation at MIT certainly meshes with ours as well. So it's been very productive. The collaboration on Shahzad's project was just, I think, very inspiring for both organizations. And so we decided to keep going, to make a long-term commitment to each other beyond a single title. And we launched just earlier this year the On Seeing series, which is committed to centering underrepresented voices and perspectives in visual culture. For Brown, this is a very significant step forward because it allows us to now work with non-Brown authors. Our Mellon portfolio is to support our own faculty, but the series will allow us to work with faculty, with scholars all over. And so that's very exciting and very important, we feel, because we want to see more multimodal digital publishing, so that we have more models, more examples, and more authors willing to try this. We're very excited about that. It will use the PubPub platform. So that's also an important move away from the exclusively bespoke high touch project. It will also allow us to really push the boundaries of that platform, but also for the first time, think very critically about community engagement, which will also be a very robust part of the series. And so MIT will produce the print book and Brown will produce the digital edition. And we are excited to see how this is all going to come together. And I think we'll probably see our first title in early spring 2024. So that's tomorrow. So there's a lot of thinking and experimentation underway. But again, we feel that it is a very crucial step for all of us to expand, to open up the practice of digital publishing and to bring as many different new underrepresented voices into this ecosystem as possible. I think it's almost, 1:45, and we would love to engage with all of you. So I think we'll stop talking at this point. I think we've shared all the work that we're doing, and happy to talk about the stuff that most interests you all.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today and for all of this great material and information. It was great to hear. I have some questions myself. I will let other people. I see Katie's raising her hand. We're eager to get in there. I'll invite others to also put questions in the chat or raise your hand and come off mic, mute and speak up. I do want to raise one quick one just from that Jessica had put in the chat earlier. Just to go back to the Bashir publication, she asks, to what extent is the layout of the visual table of contents determined by algorithm versus designed? Meaning the lines that connect the sections and everything. Was that, and so she's wondering how much is that curated or designed versus computer programmed?
That's the author.
Okay.
So that's design. The author's choice and recommendations, clustering thematic content in a very intentional way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Katie, you want to pop in and ask your question too?
Yeah, I mean, mine was somewhat related to that. And thank you just for sharing your work. It's incredible. I can't wait to see the series when it launches and just seeing what you've done already. And I think that, one thing that is can be challenging in terms of like the idea of expanding the boundaries of what a digital publication can be and thinking expansively about it. And for people who are used to a certain sort of workflow of, okay, I have my text, I have my images, it's, flowing into, and being able to think about, to take advantage fully, like you did in that table of contents, like we can map these relationships in a way that can be more dynamic than just having a bunch of cross-references in an, in an index or, links. And I'm just curious about kind of how you have successfully, done that with authors, or if your kind of approach to these publications and maybe the order of operations of thinking about design is different than in kind of print workflows, and if there are just sort of any recommendations about how to get the most out of being able to take advantage of the almost endless possibilities that could be afforded by these types of things.
Thank you, Katie. That's a great question. And yeah, something that I talk through with prospective authors. It's the very first thing we discuss, that so far, I mean, I think this would be the case for just about any author at this present moment. Anyone pursuing a digital publication is likely doing it for the first time. And so it's all new, and there isn't a single roadmap, there isn't a how-to manual on how to do this, and we spend a lot of time on developmental editing. So authors will come to us with really excellent ideas, sometimes years of research already completed, a very clear sense of the project, but really not sure how this should or could look in a digital space. And we don't know also, because we don't know what projects are going to come in the fall as proposals, but we start to think immediately, right? Okay, well, first, is this argument best served in a digital format or a print? Because some books really work best as print books, right? So, and we want to make sure that we are again, advancing the argument in ways that a print format just doesn't allow. So we think as a team, I saw Warren is also on the call, another member of the team, our postdoc, Warren Harding, and we have lots of conversations about what could this be. In the beginning, I tell my authors, think big, think really big, and then I'll tell you what's going to be possible. And scope is critical. So it's not far into the process where I have to sit down with my authors and have the conversation about the nice to haves versus the need to haves, because otherwise it can quickly become an expensive circus, right? And we want to keep the focus on really the scholarly argument and contribution presented in the most innovative but also successful way possible. So let me see, I'm not sure if I'm answering fully your question, but I think again, I mean, I encourage authors to think creatively, and this is where teamwork comes in and is particularly useful, where I have developmental editing expertise, but Crystal is our designer, and Holiday has design and platform expertise. So we bring all of these resources together and we talk about what does this project need, and we sort of go from there. So lots of talking through and experimenting.
I might just jump in and add to that, Allison, if I may. Also, part of the, I think, productive pleasure of the collaboration were a lot of iterative conversations, and in particular with this book, Katie, to your question, it was about how do we create a space that takes full advantage of the union of form and content in a way that, as Allison mentioned, might not be possible in a print book. This book in particular is so much about the nature of temporality and how it influences our perspective, how perspective influences the production of knowledge, how the production of knowledge influences history, and ultimately coming back to meaning, how meaning is created through textual, visual, and material cultures. And so I really wanted to think every time I looked at an iteration of the work in progress, I was thinking, how is this work doing it? How is it doing it in ways that are substantive? My pet peeve is whistles and bells. I don't like taking a print book and making a PDF and putting something shiny on it. We really wanted to make sure that every decision we made emphasized the argument, expanded the argument, and helped the reader to engage with the argument on their own terms.
And one more thing to add to this, speaking particularly about Shahzad's process, it was fascinating to see how his writing changed as a result, because he started, when he conceived of this book project, he conceived of this as a printed book, and maybe had a chapter or two written when I first sat down to speak with him and invite him to consider pursuing this as a digital publication. And so as the design work was underway, and he was extremely influential. He took a big role in that. He then had to go back and rework his chapters and his argument, and it really pushed him in ways that, again, just that intellectual creativity that was possible in this project was just very energizing for him and for us to watch him at work. Was wonderful, and so there is that practical point as well about the writing process and how all of this comes together and at what point, and Victoria mentioned the various iterations. I mean, it is very much a work in progress as we sort through and figure out what's working, what's not working, a lot of pivoting, but I think we can't do anything without the authors. The authors are the critical players. They bring the ideas to us, and this wonderful writing, and then we work together to find the best way to present it. Yeah.
Great. Sort of along those lines, Victoria, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about any particular challenges or stumbling blocks that you had in working in this new way and doing this new kind of finding ways of presenting an author's point of view and arguments in an innovative way. If there's any advice that you would give folks in the audience here who are sort of starting to undertake that kind of work themselves from a publisher's perspective.
Sure. Thank you, Greg. I would say there were no challenges except for the best kind in terms of working with the author. From my point of view as a publisher, this publication is no different than anything else that I would advocate publishing, and meaning, the intellectual rigor and the exceptional research are paramount, and they're in abundance in Shahzad's work. The strong argument-driven narrative is there, even in the innovative platform that allows for the reader to become their own historian, in a manner of speaking. The piece that might be even most important to me is there, and that is why does this matter? What's at stake here? How does this make a genuine contribution to knowledge in such a way that it helps us understand and be present in the world? So no matter what form I publish in, those are the things that I'm going to be looking for, and they were present in abundance. In terms of publishing within a structure which is a revenue-driven model, which most publishing houses are, and this being a born digital work with no revenue stream, it did require a certain amount of internal advocacy to help my team understand why it was important for us to get behind the work. I think the way that we were able to confront that is, Allison and I very early on and very quickly worked out the ways in which we could bring our institutions to the table to provide cost sharing, resource sharing. And that made this possible. And I think that is the answer for us going forward. And we've talked a lot about this, and this is a model that we're implementing for On Scene. It's about how do we bring our complementary resources, know-how, and expertise together, pay for those things effectively, and make this liminal space between us productive in a way that it just seems natural to do. So that requires advocacy and a fair amount of explaining, but once people get it, they really get behind it. And of course, what we bring to a project like this are all of the pieces that we would bring to any project, the vetting of the scholarship, the global marketing and publicity. And it took a while to figure out how do you massage that marketing and publicity model where the end user, the media, wants a concrete physical book to work with. It's very hard to get them to put eyes on a link. And our marketing and publicity team, they're just brilliant. It's about 10 people all together, and they figured out all kinds of innovative ways and a lot of trial and error. And they treated the work as it should be treated, which is to say a serious work of scholarship, a publication in a different format that allows for a different kind of engagement. It's not in competition with, it's not better than or less than anything else. It is a different way of engaging with knowledge and allowing the reader to co-produce that knowledge. And we've had a really lovely response over the last 10 days, a lot of people engaging with the work. So we're encouraged.
Yeah, I again can't say enough about the marketing team at MIT. We in the last 10 days since the launch, we've had 1,700 new users from over 71 countries. I mean, that says a lot. And I think that's just the beginning. So certainly very encouraging, very promising. And it just, we just want to turn to the next project. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, we've got to wrap up. I do one last really quick thing that was in the chat that I didn't want to miss. There was just a quick question from Kristen saying, asked, what is the publication platform that was built on? I believe it was just bespoke, right? It wasn't a particular platform, or?
No, that one's WordPress.
WordPress. Okay, great. So there you go, Kristen. Thank you for that question. We are at time, and I'm sure people are going to have to start jumping off. I wanted to thank you, Allison and Victoria, again, so much for joining us. It was great to hear about your projects. So much that we're going to dig into after this. I have a whole list of links that I'm going to go follow up myself. So thank you very much again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again here at our MooDig webinar. Look for our next one we'll be having in 2 months. We'll post about that in the Slack and the email list, and we look forward to seeing you again then. And the video for this talk will be posted later today to our YouTube channel and to Slack again. All right, and that's it. Thank you so much.